The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq see their best day since April as US CPI for October comes in flat, giving rise to hopes of the Fed finally coming to the end of its rate hike cycle. US futures also trade higher this morning. Asian markets rally on a soft US inflation report. The Nikkei rallies despite the Japanese economy shrinking faster than expected in the third quarter. The Gift Nifty is also implying a higher start for the Indian market. Crude trades flat with Brent around $82 a barrel on signs that tensions in West Asia could be easing. Uncertainty also persists over the US crude inventory report due to be released later today. The MSCI in its quarterly index review adds 9 stocks to the global standard index with no deletions. APL, Apollo, IndusInd Bank and Paytm are the key inclusions in addition to macrotech developers, Persistent Systems, Polycab, Suzlon, Tata Communications and Tata Motors DVR. Team India will be looking for payback for the disappointment in 2019 as they face the New Zealand in the semi-finals of the Cricket World Cup today. The men in blue have a perfect record in the tournament, having won 9 of their 9 matches so far, but have had an inconsistent track record in ICC knockout games in recent tournaments. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. So those are the top headlines. Of course, the big thing today is the semi-finals that we'll be watching out for as well. But of course, we were on a holiday yesterday and the global setup looks really encouraging. If we look at the numbers as well, it's the CPI inflation data that really led to the rally that we saw in the US markets, and that's something that we are seeing in the Asian markets as well. So let's quickly take a look at what the Asian markets are doing. Largely higher today after that flattish kind of number that we got as far as the US CPI is concerned. 0.1% increase. It came in at 0.1% higher and lower than what the economists were estimating as well. Hang Seng is up 2.5% as we speak. Taiwanese index is up 1.1%. We have Nikkei 2, which is rallying despite the fact that the GDP data has come in lower than what the street was working with. So Nikkei 2 is higher in trade by around 2%. And if we look at the Gift Nifty, we'll compare it with Nifty futures, and the implied open suggests that it could be a gap up opening for our own markets to the tune of around 200 to 230 points. There you go, 19,727 is what the Gift Nifty is suggesting, indicating that it would be a good day for our own markets as well after a break that we had yesterday. Moving on now to the big Q from the United States last night. The consumer price index was flat in October from the previous month versus a street estimate of a rise of 0.1%, while inflation increased 3.2% from a year ago versus expectation of a 3.3% increase. Core CPI, meanwhile, hit a 2-year low, rising 0.2% month-on-month and 4% from a year ago, softer than consensus estimates. CNBC's Rick Santelli gets us all the highlights.
October read on our consumer price index. Month-over-month headline expected up 0.1, comes in at 0, unchanged 0, which equals the lowest we've seen on this metric since we hit our high at 1.2. That was in June of 22. That was the highest since 05. So 0 ties. That's the lowest we've been. And if you strip out the all-important food and energy, it's up 0.2. That's 1/10 cooler both than expectations and the rearview mirror. Year-over-year headline up 3.2%, 1/10 lighter than expectations, 0.5% less than the 3.7 look last time. 3.2, just to put a face on it. 3.0 in June of this year was the lowest since March of 21, so we're still above that level. And finally, what I would consider potentially the most important, even though it's ex-food and energy, is year-over-year CPI. 4%, 1/10 lighter than we were expecting, 1/10 lighter than our last look, which was 4.1. And the metric there, and this is a biggie, we haven't been under 4% since May of 2021. Yes, under 4% since May of 2021, although this is the lowest level since 6.6, which was a high watermark in September of last year.
Okay, all right, that's about the US CPI print, but let's get you some important opinion coming in from a range of market experts on the October CPI print and what this could mean for the Fed's next move. Listen in.
I think this is a game changer. We're having a day of rational exuberance because the data clearly show what we've been waiting for a long time, which is a crack in the shelter component. That's been holding the CPI up and the PCE up for a long period of time. And we finally got a crack in that, a big time crack. And I think that is a game changer because I think it leads to the Fed now being comfortable declaring that policy is sufficiently restrictive. And that's a big deal because it means they're finished tightening and the next move will be an ease. And the whole debate will be about when on easing as opposed to whether or not we're going to get any more hiking.
Well, look, today's reaction both in the stock market and the bond market, and of course the bond market led the stock market, you could argue is perfectly rational trading reaction to today's number. And it was a great number. I mean, you strip out rents and the CPI was actually negative 0.1, and the year over year went from 2 to 1.5. So you do have to start to wonder at what point the Fed runs out of excuses to sound so hawkish.
Well, the CPI was a great report. You know, I'm a big believer that you should always take out what doesn't support your story. And if you take out shelter from the CPI, it was up like 1.5%. If you take out food, energy, and shelter, it was up 2%. So we've already got inflation pretty close to where the Fed wants it. They actually wanted at 2%. So we just have to wait patiently here. But shelter inflation is definitely coming down. I think the market read it the right way. And I think this rally is going to continue. My year-end target is 4,600, and it's turning out to be too conservative the way things are going. And I think if we actually go up to 4,600, that's actually a breakout, which could set us up for a good rally into early next year.
And following the softer than expected October inflation print, stocks on Wall Street rallied, with the Dow Jones surging over 480 points, the S&P 500 gaining close to 2%, notching its best day since April, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq jumping over 2.5%. The 10-year Treasury yield, which shocked investors by leaping over 5% in October, tumbled below 4.5% following the inflation print. Stock futures tick higher after the Wednesday rally on Wall Street as well. And let's now get to the final update on our global market wrap. The European markets closed higher on the back of the cooler than expected CPI data. The French CAC closed 1.4% higher, the German DAX ended nearly 270 points higher, and the British FTSE was up 14 points. The Pan-European Stock 600 index climbed 1.34% and saw almost all sectors and major bourses in the positive territory. Meanwhile, the Eurozone economy contracted marginally in Q3. However, employment still rose. Okay, with that, it's time for a short break now. When we return, we'll tell you how these overnight global cues will impact our own markets in our Power Prep segment. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. It's time for our Power Prep segment. We have a research team joining in with what the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. But first up, of course, the trade setup. Vivek is joining in with all the market cues. Hey, Vivek, good morning.
Well, good morning. What a difference a single holiday has made as far as, the kind of sentiment that equity markets worldwide have seen. So yesterday, a couple of good news coming in as far as the U.S. markets were concerned. Like we mentioned earlier, the shutdown was averted, the CPI data coming in softer than expected, and this led to quite a significant rally as far as the entire U.S. markets were concerned. All of the U.S. indices ending well in the green. Along with that, some further positive news flow in terms of crude oil prices as well. Further softening seen over there. Brent futures now trading closer the $82.50 a barrel mark. Now, talking about Indian markets, and day before yesterday, Indian markets ended with cuts, it was a range-bound trading session on Monday, and it was, a significant outperformance as far as the broader end of the markets were concerned. However, the overall market breadth continued to remain quite negative. But, there has been a sea change, a lot of news flow too has come in. Number one, key event, Goldman Sachs has gone ahead and upgraded the rating as far as the Indian entire equity is concerned, and they made it to a market weight from an earlier slightly negative stance that they had. Along with that, MSCI inclusion stocks, the list has come out. It's a net inflow even for India, and November 30th, you'll see over $1 billion of flows coming into India from passive funds. Along with that, as far as new listings are concerned, ASK Automotive 2 list today. So talking about today's trading session, Asian markets have taken the positive cues, so trading well in the green. Gift Nifty, adjusted for yesterday's close too, is indicating quite a strong gap up start for our own markets today.
Oh yes, gap up start is what we are expecting today for our own markets. Thank you so much, Vivek, for all those cues. a lot of stocks that will be on our radar. Abhishek has that list.
Well, to begin with, Dabur Group heads have been named in Mahadev betting app scam affair. Burman family has denied allegations as mischievous act. Seat Limited, they have got the permission to restart directions for operations at their Bhandu plant by MPCB. Asian Paints, they have increased their capacity by 1 lakh, to 4 lakh from 3 lakh earlier kiloliter per annum at one of their plant. The investment is about 385 crores, which will be funded through internal accruals. PTC Industries in focus. Safran and PTC Industries have signed contract to provide casting parts for LEAP engine powering single aisle jet. So Biocon, its arm, has received MHRA UL approval for ESAFLI. Grasim Industries, the revenue and profits are higher than our estimate. However, the poll in terms of margin is a bit on lower side. Margins have come in at 9.2% versus our poll of 10.2%. There are a list of stocks getting included in the MSCI as part of the November index RIGIC. So we have APL, Apollo Tubes, IndusInd Bank, Macrotech, Paytm, Persistent Systems, Polycab India's Suzlon, Tata Communication and Tata Motors DVR, which will be in focus in trade today on account of MSCI inclusion. Back to you.
Okay, all right. That is all the stocks that we have on our radar, but a lot of cues from the F&O space as well. Nigel has all the cues. Morning, Nigel.
Well, morning, Sonal. The two big cues that came in overnight, one is the lower dollar index, and the US 10-year yield as well has cooled off, and that will be music to the ears of Indian investors. Now, if you look at the FI positioning, well, they continue to remain net short with close to around 81% of their positions on the short side. They unwound some shorts. In fact, they covered it out. Close to around 8,000 contracts were covered out on Monday's trading session. Now, in terms of levels that we're looking at, well, the Nifty, the 19,500 call, that has the highest open interest. That's close to around 1 crore shares approximately. Now, the premium out there is close to around 41 rupees. It was at around 70 rupees earlier on Monday. I think we should get that up at some point of time. And the change in open interest out there was up more than 25 lakhs. So the 19,500 call is what we're talking about. Since you have such a big open interest build up out there, you get the resistance zone. Now that comes at around 19,550 to around 19,600. Now the Gift Nifty suggesting we open comfortably above those levels. So let's see whether or not we can close above that level, because the bulls will like to see a close above that level. Support comes in at around 19,350. But today, you have the Nifty Bank that will play out expiry as well. That's the weekly expiry. So getting a couple of levels up for you on the screen. The 44,250, well, that's a crucial zone. That's the resistance zone that we're looking at. 44,000 call, that has the highest open interest. Premium out there is roughly around 100 rupees odd. And the reason I say that 44,250 is important, because the 50 and the 100 DMA, well, that's in that vicinity. So the Gift Nifty suggests a strong start. You want us to build on that. And in fact, the broader market party as well, I expect it to continue. Back to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Nigel, Vivek and Abhishek, for joining us and telling us what to expect from trading day today. It's time to now get you some important domestic macro cues we are tracking this morning. Inflation eased to the lowest level in 4 months in October, with CPI coming in at 4.87% for the month versus a CNBC TV 18 poll of 4.8% and 5.02% in September. Food inflation, however, remains steady at 6.6% versus a poll of 6.1% and 6.56% in September. Meanwhile, core CPI came in at 4.2% in October versus a CNBC TV 18 poll of 4.4% and 4.5% in September. India's wholesale inflation for the month of October remained in negative territory for the 7th straight month at minus 0.52%. WPI for the month of September stood at minus 0.26%. All right, it's time for a short break now. When we come back, we'll get you more news and updates that will follow on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast on CNBC TV 18. The MSCI quarterly index RIGIC has seen 9 stocks being added to the global standard index with 0 deletions. Vivek is back with us with all the details on this one. Vivek.
Well, good morning. It's an event that's cleanly and, eagerly awaited by a lot of quant analysts, also a lot of passive fund managers, given that this particular time, there's a long list of stocks that actually been added to the widely tracked MSCI Global Standard Index. most of the additions are along expected lines in terms of what exactly quant analysts were penciling in going into this particular event. So the event and the changes will happen on November 30th, 2023. And remember, this is a net inflow event as far as India is concerned. Over $1 billion of flows will actually come into India on the back of the entire reject. Now, this particular reject involves the stock that we are discussing that will be included. A lot of other weight changes too that will happen of the stocks that are already part of the index. But let's have a look at the stocks that are getting included into this particular index. APL Apollo Tubes comes in, expected lines, Tata Motors DVR, Macrotech, that is Lodha, Tata Communication, Persistent Systems, have quite a large inflow, over $220 million comes in. IndusInd Bank, we had flagged this off, post the results, once the shareholding pattern had come out, this particular stock will see inflows of over $300 million. Polycab, that is Paytm, 197 Communication, and Suzlon too will see sizable inflows of over $241 million. Remember, all of the estimates that we have in terms of flows are from IIFL Alternative Research. Now, additionally, the Indian small cap index will see 42 additions and 19 deletions. Among the key additions, Gateway District Parks, Ahluwalia Contracts, and Gokaldas Exports are the prominent names that will see significant weight increase inside.
Okay, all right. Interesting names there. Thank you so much, Vivek, for joining us with all those details. Moving on to some more news now. Dabur Group Chairman Mohit Burman and Director Gaurav Burman have been named in an FIR that was registered by Mumbai Police on November 7th in connection with the Mahadev betting app case. The FIR, which was filed, included names of 32 individuals. The charges specified in the FIR involve various sections related to fraud and gambling. Meanwhile, a spokesperson from the Burman family responded, calling the FIR patently false and baseless. The statement from the family said that it is a step provoked by vested interests in an attempt to block the acquisition of Religare Enterprises by Burman family. Moving on now, rescue operations are still underway in Uttarakhand to evacuate the 40 labourers trapped inside the under-construction tunnel that collapsed on Sunday. However, the authorities have informed that the workers are safe and being provided with food, water and oxygen. The rescue operation is currently being carried out by the State Disaster Response Force and National Disaster Response Force along with police and other local administrational personnel. The Uttarakhand government has also constituted a 6-member expert committee to investigate the tunnel accident. Okay, with that, let's move on. Team India will be looking for payback for the disappointment in 2019 as they face the New Zealand in the semi-finals of the Cricket World Cup today. The men in blue have a perfect record in the tournament, having won 9 of their 9 matches so far, but have had an inconsistent track record in ICC knockout games in recent tournaments. The match, to be played at the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai, will begin at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Okay, with that, let's move on to some somber news. Legendary Indian hotelier Prithvi Raj Singh Oberoi passed away yesterday at the age of 94. Affectionately known as Bicky, the chairman emeritus of the Oberoi Group leaves a rich legacy and has been instrumental in redefining Indian hospitality and putting the Oberoi Group on the international map. He was awarded the Padma Vibhushan by the government in 2008 for his exceptional contribution to the hospitality industry. The international luxury travel market conferred him with the Lifetime Achievement Award in December 2012 as a global recognition of his contribution. Several industrials, politicians and other eminent individuals expressed their condolences on social platform X. The founder of the Sahara Group, Subrata Roy, died on Tuesday at the age of 75 due to a cardiorespiratory arrest. He had been battling complications arising from a number of health complications, including diabetes. Popularly known as Sahara Shri among his colleagues, Subrata Roy was a prominent businessman who set up the Sahara Group. Roy has also received the National Citizen Award in 2001 and Businessman of the Year Award in 2008, among several others. And in 2012, Roy was named among the 10 most influential businessmen in India. Okay, all right. On that note, we'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast. But stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next.